Food from urban agriculture has carbon footprint 6 times larger than conventional produce, study shows. This came to my attention a few days ago. It kind of showed up in my feed because all the gardening stuff does. I was like, I should probably make a video addressing this because it's probably gonna weird a couple people out. A couple days later, I was sitting and having my morning coffee and watching some YouTube. And I saw that Brian at Next Level Gardening had actually done a video about this. And I was like, oh, what does he have to say about that? And so I started watching his video. I didn't like it. I'm going to address some things in it. Now, Next Level Gardening is an amazing channel, and Brian is a really great gardener, and so this is not a takedown. This isn't a script. These are some notes I took so that I could make sure I don't accidentally misquote anyone. So this video is going to be about 3 things. I'm going to be responding to Brian's video about this article. I'm going to be talking about the article itself from my own perspective, and I'm going to talk a little bit about feelings. And one thing that this article has probably done for a lot of us is it brought up some feelings. We're having some feelings about the idea that we might be producing 6 times more carbon than a conventional farmer. Now, it's really kind of funny and a really neat coincidence because the very same day that I saw Brian's video about the article, I got a message from a viewer saying, hey, is Brian at Next Level Gardening right about what he's saying? And is the article correct? And if the article's right, what are some things we can do to bring our carbon footprint down? I mean, it's kismet, right? I've got to make this video. It's a beautiful sunny day, but it's cold. It's really cold. Can you see my breath? I can. So I'm going to take you in the greenhouse to finish this video up. I wanted you to see what's the garden like in my climate right now. There's not a lot happening, but it's nearing 70 degrees in the greenhouse, and I think we'll be a lot more comfortable there. Now, first of all, you're going to notice as I go through this that I'm reading quotes from my notes. I am not going to play you any clips from Brian's Next Level Gardening channel. And the reason I'm doing that is that I wasn't able to find contact information for Brian to ask him for permission to use his material in my response video. And I do think that's important, that we respect other people's intellectual property. So Brian, if you watch this, you can find my email address in the About section of my channel. Also, my viewers, hey, the email address is there for you too. If you want to contact me, please use my channel email. And you can always make a comment on one of my videos. It doesn't have to be about what the video is about. I read all the comments because I'm still small enough to do that. So there are ways you can contact me. Now, the first bit of Brian's response video to the article that I want to read to you, he said, I stayed quiet last year around this time when egg prices went through the roof. There was a worldwide egg shortage, and the powers that be were telling us that keeping our own chickens wasn't as beneficial as you think it is, and downright dangerous, actually. I want to push back on the powers that be thing. Guys, Big Chicken doesn't care if we have backyard chickens. Our eggs are never going to undercut their prices. Now, secondly, the egg shortage was over well before anyone could conceivably have recouped, unintended, their cost on what you have to spend to start up with chickens. An egg shortage is not a good reason to get chickens. I want chickens. I know Brian has chickens. And, you know, every time I see someone's chickens or chicken coop, or even if I hear chickens off in a distance, I'm a little bit jealous because I don't have chickens too. I think chickens would be an amazing addition to my garden, but you know what? I'm not going to pretend they're going to save me money. As far as the danger part goes, so the problem with chickens is they're cute, right? And you just want to kiss them on their fluffy little faces because our backyard chickens aren't regulated. If we give them a peck on their fluffy little face, there is a non-zero probability that we can get salmonella from that affection. So yeah, keeping chickens is a little bit more dangerous than buying chicken eggs. Now, another thing that Brian did in his response video is he criticized the headline. I'll read that for you again. Food from urban agriculture has carbon footprint 6 times larger than conventional produce study shows. And his criticism of the headline is he says it's sensationalist and it gives people an untrue impression of the article. So I have 2 things I want to push back on. Thing number 1, let me read you a sensationalist headline. Now they want us to stop backyard gardening. What's next? Nowhere in the article does it say that they want us to stop backyard gardening. And while I'm talking about them, there is no them. Just as our backyard chickens are no threat to big chicken, our backyard gardens are not a threat to big agriculture. So we are all pushing out content, myself included, and we want people to see it. We want people to get it. We want to have that benefit to ourselves in terms of, well, Brian's monetized, I'm not. So we want those dollars, but also, it's the only way that we can compete with the other flashy headlines that are out there in the world. All right, so next Brian says, but in a world of shortening attention spans, most people aren't going to get past the headline. And I think the powers that be, there's that again, know that because they bury the positives, any positives about any of these things, they bury at the bottom of the article where nobody's going to see it. Okay, Brian, what powers that be? Be specific. This is conspiracy theory talk now. Who is out to get organic farming, Brian? It's a multi-billion-dollar a year industry. And not just the farming itself. All those hobby products that organic gardeners can buy, they're also a multi-billion-dollar a year industry. They are making so much money from people gardening. The powers that be are not engaging in a big conspiracy to keep us from growing food. The second paragraph of the article says, however, a few city-grown crops equaled or outperformed conventional agriculture under certain conditions. Tomatoes grown in the soil of open-air urban plots had a lower carbon intensity than tomatoes grown in conventional greenhouses, while the emissions difference between conventional and urban agriculture vanished for air-freighted crops like asparagus. So in the article, on paragraph 2, which is almost the top of the article, they're saying that urban agriculture is better than conventional agriculture in these ways. They're not burying anything, Brian. In response to part of the article, Brian said, so poisoning the land with pesticides, herbicides, synthetic fertilizers, monocropping, and taxing the soil to the point of no return, and poisoning our bodies in the process, that's all somehow positive because it lowers our carbon footprint? How does this make sense? I want to push back there. Brian, nowhere in the article does it say those things. And there are 2 logical fallacies you're engaging in here. First is the straw man fallacy, where you are taking somebody's thing they're saying that you don't like, and then you're misrepresenting it. The second fallacy that you're engaging in is the argument from incredulity. I can't imagine how they're right, therefore they can't be right. Then he goes on to say, this is where I think black and white thinking goes too far. The focus is so much on carbon footprint and what that may or may not do in the future that we're not taking a look at what's happening right now in front of our eyes. Now, right now in front of our eyes, I think he's referring back to, the poisoning our bodies in the process phrase, which I also need to push back on, because the pesticides used in organic farming, and they are used in organic farming, are no safer, no less poisonous than the pesticides used in conventional farming. And I really want that thinking to stop, because it's gonna hurt people, especially backyard gardeners. But if I buy this organic pesticide, I can still grow organically and it's safe. And then we're not going to think about what are safety measures I need to take when I use this pesticide. We're not going to think about what beneficial insects will also be killed when I use this pesticide. We're going to apply that pesticide. We're maybe not going to use those safety measures we should have used, and we're at risk of making ourselves sick because we falsely believe that organic gardening does not use poisons and conventional gardening does. It's killing stuff that ingests it. It's a poison. There's nothing wrong with using organic gardening methods in your garden. It's just, be aware of the facts of what you're doing, please. And when you use poison, follow safety measures whether or not it's organic material. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Now, just in case you're concerned that I was taking those quotes from the video out of context, I will be including a link to Brian's video that I'm specifically responding to in my video description. And please do watch the whole thing so you get the context, because he does make some good points in there as well. I think Brian and I both wish that we could exist in a media landscape where we were not having to sensationalize stuff just to get attention to what we have to say. Now, one thing that I was super excited about as I watched Brian's video is that as he closed out his video, he talked about a new series of videos that he's going to be doing where he wants to focus on low cost or no cost gardening. Oh my God, Brian, I'm so excited for you to do that. Guys, if you're not subscribed to Next Level Gardening, subscribe just for that. Whether or not you're an organic gardener, all of the organic methods can be used whether or not you subscribe to organic gardening as an idea. I share with Brian a concern that there is too much focus on spending thousands of dollars on greenhouses and materials for raised beds and fancy gardening tools and fancy harvesting baskets and all these things you don't need. If cost is a barrier to gardening, oh my gosh, Brian is on the right track. All you need to grow food is seeds and maybe a stick and some dirt to push around. I think my voice is getting a bit rough. I'm coming down with something right now, so apologize for that. Now, the purpose of the article is not, as I've said earlier, to scare people away from gardening, and I wanted to read this paragraph to you. Urban agriculture offers a variety of social, nutritional, and place-based environmental benefits which make it an appealing feature of future sustainable cities. This work shines light on ways to ensure that urban agriculture benefits the climate as well as the people and places it serves. That was paragraph 4, nowhere near the bottom. So one thing I got in the message from my viewer that I do want to make sure I address is, what are some ways that we can actually reduce our carbon footprint? And I took some notes from the article. The article has some suggestions. So if we cultivate crops that are typically greenhouse grown or air freighted. So the two big examples from the article itself are tomatoes and asparagus, but I found also cucumbers and lettuce are often grown in greenhouses or air freighted. So if you grow tomatoes, cucumbers, lettuce, and asparagus in your garden, you are lower carbon than conventional farming, which makes me super happy because I grow a lot of lettuce. So much lettuce. If you make changes in your site design and your management, so for instance, more efficiently using resources, using local resources instead of the crap from the big box store, stuff like that. That's a way that you can reduce your carbon footprint. If you extend your infrastructure lifetimes, longer lifetimes of the stuff that you build into your garden means that you're using less carbon overall because you don't have to replace stuff as often. So, for instance, a bad thing I did in my garden is I cheaped out and I bought the Douglas fir from my raised beds instead of the cedar because I can pay like a third as much. But I'm going to be replacing that Doug fir at least twice as often, which means that's a lot more carbon emissions from my garden from the infrastructure. But something that I've done that saves carbon is that instead of buying wood chips from the big box store for my garden pathways, I contacted Chip Drop and I had a arborist drop off arborist wood chips for free on my property, and that is my pathways. And because those wood chips would have gone to a landfill and turned into carbon, that eliminated carbon emissions overall from 2 points. I am emitting less carbon here, and also that arborist emitted that little bit less carbon. Using urban waste as agricultural produce inputs. So my pathways are an example of that. Also, they point out you can use construction debris or demolition waste. Some people, instead of buying greenhouse kits like I did, they'll build their greenhouses using old windows from houses, right? So that's going to be less carbon because you're recycling materials. You're reusing instead of buying the new stuff like I did. I was just so eager to get this greenhouse. Forgive me, guys. Now, also, according to the article, reducing carbon emissions isn't the only thing that urban gardening does. There are high levels of social benefit. And the more social benefit we produce with our gardens, the more those carbon emissions become worthwhile. So, for instance, if you donate excess produce maybe to your local food bank, you're helping families. There's not a lot of fresh produce that winds up in food banks. I'm including a link to the full article in the description. So let's talk about feelings. Now, I try to keep all of the feelings in my videos pretty positive, and the reason for that isn't because I think it's what people want to see. I know better. We want drama. Dude, reality television is huge right now, and I am dropping the ball. But my garden is my happy place. I feel so good here. You can't see it in my face right now because I have a terrible throbbing headache because I'm getting sick. But just this time I'm spending in the sunlight in my greenhouse, smelling that soil. I mean, oh my gosh. Especially in February, I need it so much. And I'm so happy to be here and to be able to share it with you. It is really easy to feel attacked when you see headlines like "Food from urban agriculture has carbon footprint 6 times larger than conventional produce study shows." And it's okay to feel that way. Our feelings are just going to happen. It's what we do about them that really matters. We can start creating conspiracies. We can worry about the powers that be and whether or not they want us to garden. Or we can take those feelings of frustration and fear and concern, and we can use them to motivate us to find out more. Maybe there is a problem. Our feelings can be the fuel that helps us find solutions to our problems. I hope that here at the end of the video, your feelings maybe match mine a little bit more and are a little bit more positive. Nobody's attacking gardening. We're okay. And you know what? We're not even destroying the planet. Win! If you like this video, let me know in the comments. If how are you feeling? Did I help? I'd like to know. Did I bore you half to death? Tell me that. Thank you for joining me here in my garden. I hope you have a wonderful time in your own.